Greetings, everyone, and welcome to We Are ACEDS Live, streaming live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo. I'm the president of ACEDS. Today, we will be joined momentarily by Jon Rowe, the president and CEO of Pinpoint Labs. Pinpoint is a software company, e-discovery and digital forensic space that has been around for probably 15 or so years. You may recall their Safe Copy or Harvester products. We'll talk a little bit about that. But their tools are generally used to collect and copy and move data from place to place as necessary in the e-discovery space for legal matters. You can learn more about Pinpoint at pinpointlabs.com. Please visit their website. But today, we'll talk with Jon about what's happening at Pinpoint, what's new and interesting, and what's coming in the future. Jon, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you again. Thanks
Good
to
to see
everybody.
you as well.
Yeah, good to thank you. Just as handsome as always, so.
And you as well. And thanks for making time to join us today. Full disclosure, everyone, I've known Jon for the better part of 10 years. And back in my law firm days, I was a customer. And so I'm happy to reconnect with him. Obviously, we've bumped into each other along the way over the years. But let's get into it a little bit. Jon, for those who don't really know, tell us a little bit about you, your background and your origin story, as they like to say, and how you wound up in e-discovery.
Yeah, sounds like fun. So I was working for Stenson Mag and Fazell, a law firm in Kansas City back in I'll date myself, late 80s, and working in a support position and just having to deal with paper records files, having to recover files, put them back, and often they get lost. So we're spending weekends, turning records departments upside down to find something for a deposition trial. And I had some development background in, I love technology. So I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So a long story short, a few years later, when the tech existed that I kind of envisioned I wanted to pull together, ended up building a scanning application for a service bureau that I worked for, and it became known as law or legal accessware in the industry. So, it was my mission basically to be a part of a shift or a move to get law firms from working primarily with paper to get them to work with digital. So, that's my kind of origin story. And from there, we started a software company, which became known as Image Capture Engineering. And then a few years after that, we, started getting native files at our service bureau. And other service bureaus were having the same challenge. We're getting these native files in. People are doing blowbacks, and then they're endorsing, OCRing, and then, loading it. And again, I was like, there's got to be a better way. So we built an e-discovery engine, and there weren't any at the time that I knew about. So, came up with the design, worked with our engineers, and that later became known as Law Pre-Discovery, which came out. And that and a bunch of other tools from ImageCap was acquired by LexisNexis in 2007, as a lot of people know. So, but that was kind of my evolution from, getting into the imaging market and then having the opportunity, being fortunate enough to get involved in the e-discovery shift, back when it was first starting. And so it's been an interesting ride, we'll say, and we've got to see a lot of things along the way.
It's interesting that you used the phrase, there's got to be a better way. And I was constantly asking myself that question in the late 90s, right? When we too, and those are my law firm days, right? And I was also, struggling with paper documents and imaging and coding, coding documents. And so I always thought there's got to be a better way. And then I figured out how to use an Access database, and
life was wonderful, right?
I never looked back. I mean, even something simple. We were working on these big class action securities litigations, and the mailing list alone was a challenge. Like, it would take someone all day to type labels, and I was like, guys, let's just do a mail merge. Come on, we can figure this out.
Databases are your friends, and that it obviously revolutionized the industry, right? Because as soon as we started cataloging documents, even if we didn't have images, at least we were like, oh, well, it's in this box, it's in this folder, it's in this location, right? So that was still insanely helpful just to take the time or to code the documents. Again,
Yeah.
we've even before imaging, we had coding, right? So you could do date range searches and things. Yeah, you still had to go find it, but still, it was insanely useful to have a database to do your queries and stuff like that.
Boy, have we come a long way. All right, so tell us a little bit about the origin of Pinpoint Labs, because you alluded to your early days, to the early iteration of law pre-discovery. Where did Pinpoint Labs come in? And then tell us a little bit about the sort of spectrum of products and services that Pinpoint has.
Yeah, sure. So I, in 2006, started Pinpoint, and the initial interest was to get into the digital forensic side, right? So I was a software architect and developer for many years, and just loved IT in general. But I'd done the, with Law and ICE, done the e-discovery thing, but I really wanted to get to the front of the line, and I didn't intend on starting another software company, right? I mean, I love software, and it's kind of a disease. I'm always trying to figure out, how to build the next thing, but I was like, I want to keep it simple. I just want to have a couple guys. We'll do some services. So that's what I did in 2006. And a gentleman, one of the smartest people I've ever met, he was a developer at the last company. About a month after I started Pinpoint, he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? I want to join you. What are you up to?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go get my certifications and start performing, collection investigations." And he's like, "Can I come along?" And I was like, "Yeah, come on." I was like, I couldn't pass up that. I mean, he's great. I couldn't pass up, having a partner in crime. So went out, got certified, and then because of the connections in the industry, fortunately, I didn't have to really work as hard as a lot of forensic guys to get work, right? I knew a lot of service bureaus and people in law firms, and so once they found out we started a forensic company, I really just started having jobs fall in my lap and started traveling around, doing many different types of collections, mobile collections, network collections, and we investigations, expert witness testimony, and spent many years doing that. But along the way, really early on, we found some collection challenges related to doing e-discovery type defensible collections, right? The option back then was image everything, which is insanely expensive and overkill for many situations, or use robocopy, which was highly obnoxious, right? So it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm at this bank in Kansas, and I've been imaging systems for days, and I'm just trying to finish up getting these files off of file share, and I'm ready to throw everything through a window. I haven't slept in 3 days. I'm trying to get this job done. And so, in the process of trying to get these files off the server and the tools that were out there, they kept erroring, they kept blowing up, the software kept quitting, the tools I was using. And so, got it all done at the end of the day. But I went back and talked to Jamie. I said, I'm never, ever doing that again. And so that's how Safe Copy came. That's where Safe Copy came from, was just, yeah, I had a little more hair back then, but I pulled a lot of it out, during jobs like that. So, but and that's really how a lot of these products came. And even though, so I had no intent to get back in software, but we found along the way that there was just several gaps in what we were trying to do. And so we built, several utilities along the way, and eventually started making paid versions of them and selling them to, I mean, they were getting downloaded all over the world, for computer forensic investigations, e-discovery work.
Sure. And that's where I came in. I
Yeah.
was obviously one of those people, and it was great to meet you and happy to be your friend since. So we've noticed this little trend here at ACEDS, and we kind of sit in a unique position in that we kind of talk to all the different segments, whether it's corporate, law firm, government, academia, what have you. And we've noticed this little trend that's starting to tick up. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on this. We're observing that forensic examiners and e-discovery are really getting into e-discovery training and certification. And it seems to me that like they've been on the front lines of data collection for many, many years. What do you attribute this sort of, or do you have a view, I should ask you, this sort of movement or trend? I like to call it a trend. It's not a movement. Um,
moving to e-discovery training and
Yeah, the
certification.
forensic examiners are now looking more into the e-discovery life cycle on a deeper level.
Right. So, no, it's a interesting question, and it makes sense here. One of the challenges, as we built tools that were basically e-discovery, defensible e-discovery tools, the things we'd run into is those that came from a forensic training, right? So I came from e-discovery and got into forensics, so I got to see that perspective of what e-discovery collections were. But what we've ran into is people who were more purist forensic individuals who just had forensic training. They want to image everything, right? I mean, and so when you bring them into an e-discovery environment, they don't have the proper bearings to know, okay, this isn't imaging, a few people's hard drives and we're going to recover deleted data and emails and web history. These are dozens of custodians, right? And large networks. So I think what they've realized, potentially realized, is, coming, your organization, ACEDS, is a great place to understand what are the challenges in e-discovery, how do we do the collections properly, the processing and all of that. So I think there's this huge advantage to, just like it's an advantage for e-discovery professionals to learn more about forensics. And I used to teach classes for that specifically. It's good for forensic individuals, that spent most of their time there. That's their training, to get into e-discovery fundamentals and to learn more, because we need both, right? I mean, you need their backgrounds and skills, but they also need to learn more about what happens day in and day out in civil lawsuits, right? And the processes involved, because not everything needs to be imaged. You can't image the cloud. So, can't image Google Docs. So, you know, ACEDS could be and I'm sure is an incredible resource for existing veteran forensic professionals.
Yeah, and my own take on it is just kind of like they've been on the front lines. They're trying to understand the downstream activities that are impacted by the work that they're doing, and that makes a lot of sense, particularly as we start to see, sort of non-traditional sources of ESI emerging with some of the products that are out on the market today. But I
Right.
appreciate your insight on that. I wanted to ask you too about some of the challenges. We've always had challenges with the Mac operating system, but
Hmm.
um, how is how's Pinpoint Labs products sort of solving for some of these challenges today?
Right. Well, thanks for that. And as most people know, Mac OS can be a challenge. And the recent challenges, it got worse a few years ago, because it's, as far as applications getting broken, because Apple came out. If you're familiar with Apple Silicon, it's because Apple came out with their own chips versus using Intel. And what happened is a lot of applications, it broke them basically, right? Because underlying hardware dramatically changed. And that includes some e-discovery and forensic tools that were known to do collections, also stopped working. And so that's what we call Apple Silicon, or the M1, M2 chips that now exist in the newer Macs. Pinpoint introduced an application earlier in the year called Cross-Copy. It's cross-platform, and it works on Mac, Windows, and Linux, right? It doesn't require an installation. Think of it as Safe Copy on steroids, and that, in fact, it can work on a Mac. So
Hmm.
it runs externally. It's licensed the same way that Safe Copy and Harvester are. You just activate it on a flash drive or on the machine if you need to. But the great thing is the experience to the end user is the same, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. And the problem it solves, the big problem, is that it is fine running on the newer Mac Silicon, the Apple Silicon, right? It can run on Macs that have M1 and M2 chips. And because of that, we got a pretty it, pretty good traction immediately when we announced cross copy earlier in the year, because this problem with the more current Apple Silicon. The other thing that people run into are permissions issues.
Mm.
And so we had to make a lot of special, as a lot of Apple products are locked down pretty good. And so we had to go through some extra work to make it so you could just plug in a flash drive, launch your software, and collect data back to the drive without doing major adjustments within the environment.
Huge. Listen, I've got to ask you a question because I've always wanted to ask a forensics guy this question, and I always seem to forget whenever I'm in their presence. So we've all seen on TV like the spy movies or the police or law enforcement people who sort of sneak into an office and turn on a laptop and plug in a flash drive, and 2 minutes later they walk away with allegedly the contents of the hard drive, right?
Yeah.
How realistic is that, and what's going on? And I say that knowing that like some of your collection products, it's very similar. You plug it into a USB drive on the side of a computer and you kick
Mhm.
off a copy job. There's some configuration that has to happen. It doesn't just do it automatically. But what are your thoughts on that?
That
Realistic
is
or
fun.
no?
Well, both, because anytime you see someone walk into a computer and just start randomly trying to guess passwords and they magically get in, and I always laugh because that's ludicrous, in most real life situations. The point where it could be practical is if you have, and this is how forensic guys collect laptops on occasion or on many occasion, is you have a bootable drive, right? So you have an external flash drive that's got an operating system on it. Usually, it's a Linux, what we call a Linux distribution, but it could be like WinPE or whatever. But it's basically you're booting from the flash drive or the external drive instead of the drive that's in the computer. So you plug it in, you get it to boot from the external device, and then that story becomes a little more real because as long as the data isn't encrypted in place with something like a BitLocker or something like that, you could have a script that said, okay, go quickly find me, these email files based on an extension or spreadsheet. You could write a little script like we have in Harvester or Crosscopy where it could rapidly go through there and find certain types of files and then copy them to the drive. So, short is if you can get it to boot from the external drive and the data is not encrypted in place, you could, within a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10. It takes longer for the OS to boot than it would probably take to copy
Yeah.
the files you wanted. So if you've ever tried to boot from a USB, especially a flash drive, you come back 10 minutes later and it's still thinking about loading. So,
All right, cool. I
but
just had to ask that question because I've been meaning to ask it to somebody. Um, what else is new? Any new products? Any new service offerings? Do you want to talk about the product roadmap? What's coming?
right. So we introduced cross copy, like I said, earlier in the year, and we decided to build a SaaS application, a web-based collection platform that where you could easily distribute a request out to people anywhere in the world. And it's cross-platform, cross-browser, run it from a mobile device, a desktop, laptop, and collect from several common places like your local computer, your network, Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive. And so this has been a huge effort for us that we've spent most of the year on. And we actually built an app similar to this about 16 years ago before, but it was before its time. But so Cross Copy Enterprise is something we're very excited about. It's coming out, we anticipate, after the first of the year. We've got a webinar about mid-January. We're going to show it off. But we've done about 25, 30 demos, key clients, and the feedback has been very good. And it does have some features in it that don't exist in any other cloud-based collection platforms when
Mm,
it comes to defensibility. And so, that is kind of essentially our next big thing. We've had a very large development team working on it, and we believe it'll answer and help people do things they haven't been able to do with cloud-based collection tools.
awesome. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to that. So we're almost out of time here, but where can listeners go to learn more, and how should they get in touch?
Well, Pinpoint Labs are our website, pinpointlabs.com. You can start a web chat with us. You can call us, shoot us an email at our sales at pinpointlabs.com or support at pinpointlabs.com. And we have an active blog on there. Also, please join our LinkedIn website or webpage if you haven't. We're pretty active on that. We usually have updates on various things and articles once a week. twice a week. So yeah, just stay tuned.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And listen, it's kind of sneaking up on us, but can we expect to see you at Legal Week?
Yes, absolutely. We'll be scheduling meetings. We usually have suites at the Warwick, and then have other places that we're joining for conference. I'm also on a panel, going to be on a panel out there as well. So I look forward to catching up with you. And I can you believe I've been doing that since 90? I think I've missed one show or two shows since 97.
Yeah,
I think I'm into 20 some legal. Well, it used to be legal tech, right?
right.
But yeah, so I'm always excited to go to New York, catch up with friends and colleagues, and which the friends are now family after that many years, right? So,
Yes, that is true.
but
All right, my
yeah,
friend.
I appreciate the opportunity today. Thanks to you and Maribel, everybody at ACEDS that made this possible. It was an honor to be on the show.
Happy to do it. We're always trying to demonstrate value to our members, and obviously, the Pinpoint Lab products are of value. So, thanks, John, for making some time, offering your perspective, and giving us a little roadmap. Appreciate you coming on the show today. All right, everyone. If you are interested in short form video interviews like this one, you can tune in. You can watch them live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. Or you can go to the ACEDS YouTube channel where you can watch previous interviews and live streams. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you to John and Pinpoint Labs.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who watched today. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.